Shagurdu. Welcome to the third minute of the Minute by Minute podcast on the Awake movie. So today we have, as usual, myself, Mike, Priyank. I'm hosting today, so good luck to everybody.
You'll be fine.
Good to get a bit of an introduction again to anybody who hasn't heard the last couple podcasts. Maybe Priyank, you could give us an intro, who you are and how was your meditation this morning?
I'm very good, thank you. My name is Priyank. I live in North London. How was my meditation? It was pretty good. Today's Sunday. Sunday is a special day because we're allowed to do, once a week, we're allowed to do more kriyas, like 12 more. So usually that's Sunday is my day for that. So yeah, I had a good meditation with my bonus kriyas.
Nice. And Mike?
Yeah, hey, I'm Mike. I'm currently in sunny Spain, where meditations are always very nice, especially when you have like a terrace like we have and you can meditate outside. Yeah, connect with nature.
Rub it in, Mike. Rub it in. How was your meditation this morning?
It was wonderful.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
And
how was yours, Chris?
We're kind of, I just want to say we're like an international squad here, aren't we? I'm in Northern Ireland. I probably have the worst weather of all three. So yeah, just to say, my background, again, you know, we all know each other through the SRF. So I joined the SRF, I think 4 or 5 years now. Big devotee of Yogananda. My meditation this morning was just exactly what I needed to anchor me back into some sanity in this world of COVID. So today, just to jump into it, we have the third minute of Awake, the Life of Yogananda. So first off, what was the impressions of this third minute, gents? What was your initial impression?
Let's just quickly, I'll talk through the minute. So we first of all get blessed with the first. So this like it transitions from the last minute into the first scene where we see Yogananda. There's a flash of light. It's like a camera turns to the screen, and then there's white light, and Yogananda appears, and then that really lovely bassy sound, bit of music, and Awake. You know, it's the life of Yogananda. And then we have really cool, 2 or 3 really cool people. Like, firstly, we have lots of images of Yogananda, and we'll talk about each of them. And then there's Ravi Shankar, and then there's Krishna Das, and then there's an actual video of Yogananda. We'll talk about each of those. But the minute for me was obviously up to now is the most special one, because now we actually immerse ourselves into not just the visual. A glimpse of Yogananda, but also multiple glimpses. But also we get to see videos of him, not just pictures, but we also get to hear his voice. So like this is for me. This is now it's coming to the crux. That's like the best part of the documentary or movie.
Mike, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, exactly. I felt like, because it starts very slowly, right? It's immersive, like we said in the beginning, and now it suddenly starts going, you know, you have this background music where they play those bass chords and the sitar music, and it's like stuff is happening now. And then you see all those pictures of Yogananda, and then suddenly Ravi Shankar is talking. So it's like the energy is starting to flow now, and it's getting exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the word. It is quite exciting, isn't it? They get the tone quite right. I think to start this like documentary of sorts. It's this mix between a documentary and a movie, and it is quite exciting. Starts the movie off quite well, I think, and it is quite heavy hitting. You know, you've got Ravi Shankar, who we can talk about later on, and Krishna Das, two pretty cool characters, I think. Safe to say, but shall we start by talking about the first scene that really grabbed me, which was Yogananda sitting on top of is that an alligator or is that a crocodile? Does anyone know?
I wouldn't know. I would have thought alligator, but it could actually be either one. but it's amazing how, you know, he's sitting on that alligator smiling, and it's like, I had so many questions. It's like, okay, like, you know, I would be terrified to sit on an alligator to start off, and then it's like, it seems like to be like kind of a zoo environment, you know, where he must have gone over the fence, walked up to the alligator, say some nice words, and then, can I sit on you, and then sit down on him.
Yeah, maybe he's got some kind of spiritual words being said in the background that we can't see.
Yeah, and for me, this kind of tells you a bit of a story, what kind of person Yogananda was, like completely fearless, you know? And also, he didn't mind doing things that weren't common, especially in those days, right? I mean, people must have seen him back then and thought, oh my God, what is he doing? But it's also like an act of compassion and love, you know, like, you know, when you keep an alligator in a zoo, it's because you think it's dangerous and you should stay away from it. And he's like, no, he's like my friend, you know, and really beautiful scene.
What was your impression of this, Priyank?
Yeah, so firstly, I was obviously taken aback because I've got an impression of what a guru or a spiritual leader or a master, like, you've got that impression, right? That what he has, and then this is like throws everything out of the water. It's like a guru sitting on an alligator, and you like, if I'm looking at the picture, then he's like wearing his long overcoat with his hand folded like this, and he's looking, smiling straight at the camera, and even the alligator looks like it's smiling.
Still having a good time.
Interestingly, this image is quite a powerful one, but one of the talks, Brother Smarananda, or Swami Smarananda of YSS in India, he gave a talk at convocation once, and it was about deepening your meditation, and it's one of my all-time favorite talks. It kind of like changed my meditations. That's how good it was. So one of the things he says in that is that like, you know, they're in the Western Bonaventure where all our convocations happen. And convocations, for those of you who don't know, is like this week-long spiritual retreat where there's like talks that are given, long meditations. Everyone's in this one big, lovely hotel in LA. And we, Chris, I don't think you've been. Have you been yet?
I haven't been yet, no. I was going to go, I think, last year, but then COVID struck. So
try and guess how many times Mike has been. He's too much of a
I don't even know. Yes.
he's got a season ticket.
I do, yes.
It happens once a year, and in India there's one as well. It's Sarad Sangam, I think, in India. But Mike's probably been more than the number of times it's happened in his lifetime somehow. I don't know. One of the advantages of being born into an SRF family, I suppose.
That's right.
Mm. But back to what Brother Smarananda was saying, like on the first floor, what they do, the organizers do, is they put like these rare images of Yogananda and like a little quote next to them. And Brother Smarananda said, like, in your breaks in between all our sessions, like, don't just like go to your room and like have a nap. Like go and explore some of these, you know, exhibitions that we've got. So for example, go to that floor and have a look at the image and actually like make it your own. Like when there's incidents in your life and you want to invoke an image or a feeling of Yogananda or your guru, like you need to have an image. So because like images are powerful things, right, for us. So if he, for example, gave the example that there's a picture of Yogananda with a long overcoat, and there's a small dog in his little pocket, and it's like peeking over and looking at the camera, and it's such an adorable picture. And Brother Smarananda said, I always imagine that I am that puppy. I'm in Yogananda's grasp, and he's absolutely taking care of me. And what a beautiful image, right? And coming back to this image of him sitting on an alligator and smiling, and we all talked about the fearlessness aspect of it, right? I think that's quite a powerful image for each of us to remember. And obviously, Master Yogananda is omnipresent, so like he would have predicted, you know, a lot of things, and like what a lot of images that his disciples would need. So he would have like kind of set some of these scenes up for the future, right? So like the last smile, for example, I was looking at it today in my meditation room, and he's actually got, if you see, there's pools of water in his eyes, and it's such a clear image that you can see that water and that love and compassion for us. So these images are so powerful, and what an absolutely stunning set of images we have in this minute. That's what I'll talk about it. Oh, what a minute it is.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Actually, every time I look at the autobiography of a yogi, or the picture that's on the front of that book, right there, I see something different every time. I don't know about you. It's kind of like one of those pictures that you walk past and you think the eyes are following you. And every time I look at it, I think he's kind of talking to me. He's saying the things that maybe I need to hear in that moment. I thought this picture of him sitting on that alligator or whatever it is really striking, isn't it? Because the difference between the evolution between him and the animal is striking, isn't it? It's what effectively is a dinosaur, and what is the image of God, effectively, in Yogananda sitting there. And I just thought maybe to get kind of deep into it, like what is it that separates man from animal, and what is it that really makes man special, human special. So what would you guys, like, just quickly, what would you say really is the difference? What makes humans special on this planet?
Well, it is part of the spiritual evolution, right? Like I think Sri Yukteswar talks about it in the Holy Science as well, that you have so many incarnations as animals before you are, I think, millions of incarnations before you are born as a human being. And as a human being, you have like the gift that no other like being really has. You have the spine, and you have the ability. You have this free will and the spine, and this gives you the ability to make contact with God, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. But I mean, we are beings of love essentially, and then showing love to animals is like something that is, if it's strong, and if you have a strong personality, and if you're fearless, I feel like that animals are almost always reciprocated, and I feel like Yogananda is having a moment with this alligator, and that's a really powerful moment, I think.
Yeah. I think you're right. The spine there for me is definitely the one. It really is. It's the vertical spine, isn't it? That with the energy traveling up, and the development of the brain, and our ability to interact with the world, and the creation in such a unique way. It sets us apart so much more. So whenever I looked at that picture, I thought, geez, there's an analogy in here somewhere, or it's just such a striking picture that Yogananda is effectively is what I think talking for us here, what I would imagine we're striving towards, to be this human being to all it can be. And then you've got him sitting on what is a very docile kind of creature that's from the prehistoric age. I just thought it was a really striking picture.
Yeah, that image you said, I read something quite recently about that distinction between animals and humans recently, actually. But what you just said about the uprightness of the spine, I always love that famous picture where like it kind of portrays evolution from like
the monkey,
bee form to monkey, animals to monkeys, and you see that their spine slowly like gets more and more upright up to the point where humans, and we have to we meditate like this, and we walk like that, right, with a completely straight spine, and that's obviously like linked to our evolution and our ability to connect with things that are higher than our primordial nature of beings.
It's one of the things that Yogananda does teach, isn't it? Your posture. And whenever I first started looking at the lessons and everything, I thought it was quite a funny one to kind of talk about as very important, your posture. And I suppose it is very important to do with the spine and to do with the energy centers of the spine. So shall we move on to the next thing then? What do we have next? We've got
1 second before we do, I wanted to ask a question. So for the new people, I'll try and remember when you were new as well to this path. Might be a bit difficult for you, Mike. But Chris, what was your first impression when you first saw a picture of Yogananda? It was probably that one, I imagine. It wasn't me. What was do you remember what your first impression was, or was there an impression at all?
Yeah, well, I can see where you're going with this, Priyank. I can see where you're going. I thought it was very feminine. There's a loaded question. Initially I thought wow, that was the word that came to my head. Wow, it was a very striking picture. The eyes were captivating. His flowing hair is something that you don't get all that often, in my Western culture in Northern Ireland, certainly. I'm trying to emulate him here. I'm growing my hair out, as you can see. I'm trying to get there. So he strikes a very feminine pose, I think, and his eyes are captivating, I would say. So yeah, that would be my impressions.
What was yours, Priyank? Okay.
You go, Mike. If you can remember.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. To be honest, I can't really remember, because in my household there were always pictures of Guruji.
Yeah.
And from early on, I started having like this kind of inner relationship with Guruji. I prayed to him and I tried to talk to him mentally, and I don't think there is a point where I can remember I looked at his picture for the first time. I remember I was asked about it by friends who weren't on the path, who asked me, "Who is this guy on the picture?" or "Is this your mother?" or something like that. But I feel like the kind of thing, wherever I live, wherever I go, I always need a lot of pictures of Guruji almost in every room. So kind of reminds me of what is important in life.
Yeah.
My mum's the same. Just to add on that, he's very feminine, isn't he? He's very feminine. But there is something to this, right? And maybe Priyank, you want to jump in with your impressions first?
No. You carry on with this. I was going to say this, what you're about to say. So, Chris.
Yeah, there is something to this. So I'll just reference what's happening here in the that he, I think it's the artist saying that he looks strange, like a woman with long hair, Ravi Shankar. And Yogananda talks about the masculine and the feminine energies in his teachings a lot. And this, I think, and from what I understand, is the manifestation of that balancing of masculine and the feminine. And just maybe speaking my own mind here, I know randomly Tesla talked about this back in the day, about how people asked him, why don't you have a partner? Why don't you have a wife or something? And he said, well, some people need that, some people don't. Some people have certain balances in them, some people don't. And I think he was maybe referencing to this kind of real wholesome, energy within himself. And Yogananda, similarly, he, I think, references this a lot, the balance between his feminine and masculine energy. So I think you see this really manifested in his face and in his demeanor.
Elon Musk, are you talking about? Presumably.
No. Tesla, the original scientist.
Tesla. Okay.
The original guy, yeah, and he was all about energy. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, for me, similar to what you said, Chris. So the eyes are obviously kind of quite powerful. It's like they look so far, so deep into you, even though it's just a picture. It's so real. It's so vibrant. Those eyes and the hair, etc. And I too, like Ravi Shankar, he's in his thing. I've got the script here. He sums it up so well. I distinctly remember the excitement of meeting Swami Yogananda. Obviously, we didn't meet him, but we can say we met him from the first image, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And it says, he was straight from the heart. He looked strange, like a woman with long hair, but I remember his powerful eyes. He created such a stir. So yeah, that's absolutely true for me as well. But the other thing I wanted to just quickly talk about is, like, I don't know about you, but like when I first came to the SRF Center, I hadn't seen many pictures of Yogananda other than like what's in the autobiography. But in London Center, for example, we have the altar with the six gurus, golden gurus, and then on the left we have the last smile picture. And then I've seen other pictures as well. And in my mind, like I didn't even think that there was the same person. I've seen so many, like even like in this image, we've got a young two or three young-ish images of Guru, maybe in his 40s, and then there's one that's much later when he's looking up at the camera. We'll discuss it. And in my eyes, I see those as completely. I thought they were different people, which is I don't know if you guys what you guys think of that. What do you reckon?
I think the same thing. You know, the manifestation of Yogananda, I think, can almost change features. You know, it really does look like a different person from time to time. I do know he did put on quite a bit of weight, didn't he? And then he lost it again. I think he enjoyed the US food a lot when he first moved there, and then he did put on a bit of weight and then lost it again. But I do see what you mean, Priyank. You know, there's a great pamphlet of pictures and everything in the SRF Centre in London, and it's good flicking through those from time to time.
Yeah, he mentions about strawberries and cream, like he said, like when he was younger, like he couldn't imagine, like he tried strawberries and it tasted like, it tasted horrible. And he's like, why would these people want to eat, why would the Westerners want to eat these crazy things? And then Sri Yukteswar said, you'll get a liking for it, one day. Obviously, with his omniscient eye, he could see that Yogananda was going to be in America. And then when he went to America, he changed, right? His palate changed, and he adopted the palate of an American, and he liked strawberries and cream at the end. He talks about that actually in God Talks with Arjuna, where he talks about slaying your sense desires in terms of like regaining mastery over your senses. He talks about everything from the taste of strawberries to like hot and cold, them just being like a sensation rather than you being moved, you hating the hot or hating the cold. Trying to slay those and getting in control of your body. But in reference to that, I actually I wanted to read out a section, if I may, on that. So this verse is chapter 2, verse 12, which is, the verse itself is, "It is not that I have never before been incarnated, nor thou, nor these other royal ones, and never in all futurity shall any one of us not exist." So, and the purport of that says, "Not only has man existed in some form from an indeterminate past, but so long as he is ignorantly identified with his body, either the gross physical body or the subtle astral body, he will continue throughout an indefinite future to re-inhabit fresh bodies. Reincarnation signifies not only a change of residence by the soul from one body to another, but also a change in the composite expression of the ego from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness within one lifetime. So a man of 50 years, for instance, might introspect and say to himself that to his present consciousness, i.e. you and I, and to other noble thoughts, the royal ones, that had existed before in the states of childhood, young manhood, maturity, and so forth, and that if his body lives for a few more decades, he will continue to exist in other states in the future. In this sense, one can live many lives in one lifespan, simultaneously conscious of all the different lives or habits of life, encompassed by that one incarnation, with no imposition of the forgetfulness of intervening death. The soul, or Krishna, the preceptor of Arjuna, possessing cosmic consciousness, the ever awake consciousness, and uninterrupted by death, could perceive all the stars of its series of reincarnations as they twinkled in the firmament of the eternal now consciousness.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I thought that was, I was just reading that just like 2 days ago as well. So I thought that's so relevant for this discussion, and I'd like different images, like different like pictures of Yogananda. We see him in different states, like, don't we? Like when we've got pictures of when he was very young in the ashram with like Sri Peshwar, and before when he was in school, etc. And then we even got a picture when he was like a young boy, right? And then we've got ones where he was in the latter stage of his life, and each of those are so precious to us, because even for him, he went through what we go through, us, us regular, normal souls that went through all those different phases that we went through, and we're so privileged to actually have those pictures and to make them our own, right?
Yeah. It's the eyes that he has haven't really changed all that much for me. When he was a kid, he still had these very powerful eyes, and I always thought of the eyes as the windows to the soul, and the eyes. I actually just did a search on the autobiography of a yogi. There's 172 references to eyes. And usually they're followed with sparkling or twinkling, gleaming. It's something like this, that there's something into the eyes. So I don't know if you guys think the same ways, about the significance of the eyes. And
I definitely do. I mean, I think later on we'll talk about this one picture that Ravi Shankar talks about, this picture of where he looks at I think he looks at the camera, but upwards. And it's such a, you just look at this picture. I can look at this picture for 5 minutes, 10 minutes straight, and you feel so many things. Like you see him, you feel him looking at you. It's like you are affected by the picture. You feel love, you feel compassion, but you also feel wisdom. You feel strength. You feel basically his vibe pointed at you, basically. And this saying that the eyes are the window to the soul, I feel like this is so true, because I feel that they're kind of those people who are very spiritually advanced, they always have those beaming kind of
eyes. Very, very mischievous kind of eyes, because within them there's I think Yogananda kind of talks about this. Correct me on this, guys, but he says that I am the devil, or I am Satan, I am all the things that possibly can be, or he essentially encapsulates everything, because in duality, we see things as white and black and ups and downs, but in reality, all is one. And he talks about that there's a real mischievousness to Yogananda, and I think you can see it in his face. His very childlike, playful, loving face when he's sitting on top of the alligator. Just to go back to that picture. So there's so much depth to his eyes, and I made a note actually when I was watching this, that I made a clever little place in the book behind me, the Yoga of Jesus. And in that book, Yogananda talks of Jesus, saying how Jesus had a pure heart, which Ravi Shankar references Yogananda of having as well. And Jesus was able to heal people through his words and his eyes. And I thought the latter was very revealing of why the eyes. What was it about the eyes that can heal people? And I think it's just what you said there, Mike. Through the eyes, you can see compassion, love, and strength and courage and all these things. Very, very striking. So
Ravi Shankar. Let's talk about him.
Let's talk about Ravi Shankar. What do we know about Ravi Shankar? Who wants to?
Well, he was an absolute legend, a sitar player, music guru, and he became famous in the West because in the 70s he was like visited by a lot of the people who, like when yoga became popular at this time, and you had like, for example, the Beatles, like George Harrison, for example, going to the West and then meeting Ravi Shankar. And I think he became a disciple of his, or he became a student of his. And this kind of, I don't know how to say it, but this kind of, he was a kind of authority on spiritual music. And I can only speak for the influence he had in the West, really. I'm sure in India, he was also very big. I mean, he served in the second chamber of parliament in India for like 6 years. And he, I think that towards the end of his life, he moved to Encinitas, where SRF has, most people will notice, they have a big ashram there and a temple and a large spiritual community in California. I think he lived there for the last like 10 or 20 years of his life. And also when he passed away, there was a big ceremony on the Encinitas grounds for him. And I think Brother Sevananda was doing he was running the event, and Mrinalini Mata wrote a letter, and it was like a big thing when he passed away also for people in the West.
Mm-hmm. And there's a good bit of information on the Yogananda-srf.org website. I think it's on the older website, but on the memorial service for people to check it out, in their own time. There's good links to the media coverage of the event, which to watch that I thought was very lovely, because it really got the significance of who this man was for me, because I hadn't personally heard of him. I don't know about you guys before this movie. I didn't know who Ravi Shankar was, and I also, whilst I'm in the middle of admitting things, I didn't actually know what a sit artist was. Did you guys know that before this?
Sitar artist, did you say?
A sit artist? Sit artist?
Forest. I'm guessing play of words, is it?
Well, no, it's so a sitar is a musical instrument. So I had to Google this, and it's a musical instrument of India having a seasoned gourd as a body and a hollow wooden structure to it. So the neck is wooden, but the body of it is this gourd, G-O-U-R-D, sorry for my North Irish pronunciation. And if anybody doesn't know what a gourd is, let me go one step further here and say that it's a food. So you normally eat it. The gourds include the fruits of some flowering plant species and family in the Curcubine family. So there you go. There's a bit of knowledge for you on that one. But I did not know what either of those things were, so I had to Google.
The gourd is a family of vegetables that is very popular in India. Like Karela is one of them, for example, and they're very bitter. Like you have it in sabji, or like curry, as we would call it in England, but it's like very bitter, and it's one of the most positive pranic foods or sattvic foods that you can have. Like it's really really uplifting in terms of your energy, but it's very bitter, so you have to pay the price for that energy. But like my mum, for example, used to make me drink Karela juice. So like she'd grind Karela, put it in water, and that made me have it in the morning. But it's so bitter, but you can just imagine the wonders it's doing for you. But no, Ravi Shankar, back to Ravi Shankar. Yeah, he's obviously he's very, very, very famous in India, and America really. But you might have heard of his daughters like Nora Jones and Anushka Sharma. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
Not me. Sorry, yeah. Mike has.
Nora Jones is like one of my favorite, because obviously the musical ability and talent course through their gene. Because like Nora Jones is like this you hear her voice, and it's absolutely like nothing you've heard. Just like after this, Chris, just Google Nora Jones and put her voice.
You're in for a treat. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Beautiful, like soulful voice, and like obviously Ravi Shankar is he's a good person to start interviews with, right? For this.
Absolutely. I feel like I don't know why, but my mother, her whole, how she came to SRF was basically, she liked the Beatles. She read a lot about the Beatles, and she liked George Harrison. And then he went to see Ravi Shankar. He got into yoga. Ravi Shankar gave George Harrison the autobiography of a yogi, right? And then there we go. Then she read about the autobiography of a yogi that George Harrison read it. So she read it, and boom, there we go.
Yeah, probably hundreds of people probably have the similar.
Must have been, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think you had noted, Mike, that he met Yogananda in 1930. So he was there for some time. So somebody who really had good roots in the SRF. So like you said, Priyank, great person to start with. And he really, as to what you were saying earlier, Priyank references the eyes and the soulfulness of Yogananda. So that's in the next scene, where he talks about how captivating his eyes were and how powerful his eyes were. But then we move on to the next scene, to Krishna Das. So who can tell me who Krishna Das is?
Krishna Das is he's I would say, kirtan player. He went to he went to India in like the 70s, and he started learning. What was his guru's name? I have it written down here somewhere. Neem Karoli Baba. He always refers to him as Maharaji, and he basically learned to obviously play the harmonium, but also the lyrics to a lot of those beautiful Bhakti Yoga bhajans, basically, like the Hanuman Chalisa, for example, which is a book, I don't know how many pages it has, but it has a lot of verses. It is very long, and he does a beautiful version of it, Krishna does. Like, he has this very deep voice, and like when you hear him for the first time, you think like, oh my God, this is an amazing Indian Swami. And then you look at him and he's this guy from Long Island, from Brooklyn. But he totally impersonates this kind of Bhakti Yoga spirit. It's very, very humble, very beautiful. I saw him live a few times, and he's the same in person as when you hear it. Like, he's like a very humble person. He talks to everybody who comes to his shows, and it's a very good experience.
That sounds like we need to try to get him on the podcast. Like,
absolutely, yeah, we totally should. Yeah,
because he has his own podcast, doesn't he? He has his own website.
He does, and what he started doing recently. It's called I think it's called Kirtan and Chai or something like that, where he basically plays music, and then in the intermissions he talks about spirituality, and there's even people asking questions and things like that. It's very nice, very good experience.
Awesome. And Priyanka, is this somebody you've been aware of as well?
Yeah, I've been. I often go to a lot of Hare Krishna classes. The temple is quite close to my house, for example, and their devotees, the ISKCON devotees, absolutely love everything to do with Krishna Das. Because as Mike said, he's got this really deep, soulful voice, a bit like the masculine version of like Nora Jones. Actually, interesting parallel. But yeah, he sings Ram and Krishna bhajans like, oh, it's just so moving, and like gets you into a very deep like state of awareness and like stillness. And even though it's actually, he's singing really, really powerfully, and like, we might as well, Mike, why don't you play that clip of what he actually says, because what he's talking about in Yogananda, I actually experienced when he himself sings. So Mike, play what he said.
All right, here it goes.
I remember the first time I heard Yogananda's voice. I got a record, I think, from SRF. And I put it on. I didn't know what to expect, you know? And then this booming, powerful, I, Paramahansa Yogananda, am singing. Sing with me. I went, ah.
I, Paramahansa Yogananda, am praying. Pray with me.
Great. Yeah, whenever I heard that, I thought that's a really good impression of Yogananda's voice.
Yeah,
It's pretty close. Yeah.
And if you look at his background, you can tell he's a pretty cool guy. Like he's wearing this laid back like shirt, and then like in the background he's got like a statue of Nataraja, and he's got like these sheets, like old ornate like dividers, partition dividers, like that people sometimes use to separate their room from the meditation area and stuff. And yeah, so you can tell he's a pretty cool guy as well, generally, in that you'd want to go hang out with him.
Yeah. And what do we know then? He's a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga. I hadn't, again, learning a lot over the past several years about yoga. Growing up in Northern Ireland, you don't get taught too much about it. But Bhakti Yoga, what do we know about that?
Bhakti Yoga is one of the paths to enlightenment by repeating the Lord's name. And there's many names you can choose in Hinduism, of course. Like you can choose Shiva, or you can use Hanuman, or whoever you like. And then there's also those beautiful songs about each of them. And you can just mentally or outwardly chant them. And that's, I think all of the songs by Krishna Das are a kind of Bhakti Yoga, basically repeating the name of the Lord over and over again in a beautiful melodic way.
That's the japa method, but the other element of bhakti is the devotional aspect. So obviously you pour your heart and soul into your practices, and that is a form of bhakti as well. So Paramahansa Yogananda says we should practice our kriyas with devotion. So he says kriyas plus devotion, it works like mathematics, it can't fail. So when we have to practice reverently, like Master said, like practice every day, twice a day, and we have to adhere to those instructions, because they aren't for his benefit, they're for our personal benefit. And that's part of bhakti as well. And that's what I think. There's 4 schools of yoga. There's bhakti yoga, which is what we talked about. There's karma yoga, which is the karma of activity or action, and devoting your activities to God and God consciousness. There's kriya yoga, which is the path that SRF and Babaji disseminated to all of us, which is the controlling your energies. There's bhakti, kriya, and there's the dhyana yoga or jnana yoga, which is meant intellectual grasping. So there's been greats in our time like Einstein, etc. And you could say that they're not just scientists, they're actually very profound thinkers as well, and that is a path towards God realization. And then there's something that sits over on the top of all of them, which is called Raja Yoga, which is it's called the kingly yoga, which encapsulates all of those. So we for example do bhakti and we do kriya, so we're mixing those, but we also study God talks with Arjuna most as often as we can, and we do lessons. So jnana yoga is part of our thing, and we devote all of our activities and all our actions to God and to serve Guruji. And then we're practicing karma yoga. So it's all encompassing path.
Yeah, that's a really good overview, Priyanka. Thanks for that. I mean, I googled it earlier on, did my standard Googling. Bhakti Yoga, it's one of the three paths of Hinduism. It says here that leads to moksha, and I had to Google moksha, and that's the end of death and rebirth cycle. So this guy's super interesting, really great voice, and it looks like I've got more, to listen to. My to listen to list is growing with this podcast. So he, just to go back to what he said there, was Yogananda. He was referencing Yogananda talking and saying, "Pray with me," right? And listening to Yogananda a lot, he does pray very regularly, very regularly. So, what do we know about prayer? What can we say just on the topic of prayer?
Well, it's a wide topic, right? The thing is, prayer is like there's so many quotes on prayer by Paramahansa Yogananda that it's like hard to pick one of them and say like this is the one I think is really the one, but it's the point is that it's just really powerful. The point is also that he keeps saying that if you pray for earthly things, then your prayer is limited, because you can, if you keep praying, I want the world, you're still not going to get the world, because that's not how it works really, because we are kind of all here sharing this. But if you pray for worthwhile things, and I think one of the quotes I really liked was that if you don't pray as a beggar, but you pray as a child of God, it makes your prayer much more powerful, and it also helps you to find the right things to pray for, the worthwhile wishes that you think should manifest in you. There's one more thing I can think of. I talked to Brother Bhaktananda one time, and he says, it is sometimes sad to see all the beautiful things that people don't get because they don't pray for them. So it is a very powerful thing that I think most devotees do every single day, and I think this is something everyone should be doing, because it kind of also focuses. It lets you also know what is good for yourself. Focus on the things you work towards, you want to manifest, and also pray for them.
So I can reference something here in the autobiography of a yogi, if you recall the story about I think it was when Yogananda was playing with his sister, and there was a kite involved. And the kite, do you remember this? And the kite was kind of drifting, and Yogananda prayed, and he said, I continued my prayers with a crescendo intensity. A forcible tug by the other player resulted in the abrupt loss of his knife. It headed towards me, dancing in the wind. My helpful assistant, the cactus plant, again secured the kite string in the necessary loop by which I could grasp it. So what's he saying here? That he was praying so intently that he was able to whip up the response from nature to help bring the kite towards him. I think that's what he's saying here, right? So this, to me, again, kind of puts a marker in the ground to say to somebody, it's a challenge to my mind. If you haven't really come across yoga or something as significant as what's being claimed here, explore it, pray, see what happens, and pray for the things that, Mike maybe said there that really speak to you, that mean something to you, that aren't maybe materialistic, and just play with it and see what happens. And my thoughts on prayer, just really that Yogananda talks a lot about it, to say that they're always being heard. And one thing that struck me from a lot of his teachings is that you can pray, but unless you fix the broken microphone of your mind, the prayers might be kind of jumbled, and you might not resonate, let's say, too much with them. And that is really saying something, because it takes the onus to the person. You must diligently pray with concentration, focus, determination, high energy. But Priyank, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. For the longest time, I didn't pray, and I was of that view that I'm just going to meditate. Like, God knows what I need. Why would I pray for? Why would I have a conversation and say out loud or mentally something that God knows that I need or want? And it's only actually in the last 3 or 4 years that I've actually started praying. And what I've found is that God obviously knows, but actually, do you know? Like, you may say, oh, you want or you need this, but how much conviction do you have in wanting or needing that? And is that really the right thing? And so when you pray, you kind of purify your own yourself and what you're praying for, and that is so powerful, and it's so transforming. For example, I'll give you another example. Like, I was never a fan of the worldwide prayer circle. I used to just do it almost mechanically, and then just all of a sudden the words in the worldwide prayer circle, they dawned on me, like how powerful they are. Like,
can you describe what the worldwide prayer circle is for those maybe listening that you don't understand?
Yes, right. So Yogananda and through Self-Realization Fellowship started this worldwide prayer circle. It's probably 100 years old, and so we as devotees of Yogananda, and Yogananda himself used to pray for others for their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And so and Yogananda talks about this like when a group does things together, like it makes it more powerful, and you're called to be more resonant. And so I don't know if this is a good explanation, Mike, you can probably jump in, but it kind of that harmonization of a prayer and everyone joining for that prayer. Like, for example, if someone is suffering from some illness, you might add their name to the worldwide prayer circle, and you encompass a bigger portion of humanity rather than just like yourself, your nearest and dearest, right? There could be some person in some remote part of Scandinavia, for example, that's requesting prayer, and you can connect to that, and you don't need to know that person, because you already know them as spirit if you're in that state. So you can pray for that. You can pray for that person, and yeah, again, that is such a powerful practice.
The analogy, I think, that kind of helped me understand when I was thinking about prayer, because there's so much information out there in common people. And I think religion has taken a real battering over the past sort of 50 years or so. And prayer has, through Christianity, got a bit of a bad rep. But I kind of think of it as like a battery pack. You've got one battery, right? And that one battery might be pretty powerful, depending on the battery. But, it takes quite a few batteries to power, something of greater significance, let's say. And I think when you combine these things together, the batteries together, you can amplify the message, let's say. So the worldwide prayer circle for me is that amplification, is the electric, sending the electricity, the thoughts and the prayers into the ether through that. So yeah, the SRF in London, that's my experience of it, getting together. Maybe, I don't know, how many people on a busy day might there be in there?
50 to 100.
100 maybe, yeah. And I can feel it, and you can get up and you pray. And I think it's something you need to experience and to kind of believe it, let's say.
I feel like it's like this, what Priyank mentioned earlier, the God knows what we want. This is like actually also true, right? Mm-hmm. And there's like somewhere in the spiritual diary, there's a section about prayer or something. I don't know. It comes up every now and then. I don't know what the date is, but it comes up every year, right? Because it's a spiritual diary. But there's one where it says, like, if you really want something, then pray for it, but it shows greater faith. If you say, oh God, you can anticipate all my wishes, so sustain me according to thy will.
Yep.
And that is great, but also I feel like this is also not enough. Then you have to go the next step and try to be in tune with God's will, and then try to infer from there what is actually something you should be working on. And then when you actually work on this, you might as well also pray for succeeding at it, right? I feel like there's like those two parts to it.
I think just to share, for maybe sharing here, like for me, when I pray, I pray for things like courage, like strength, clarity. I pray that, I have, like, everything I need is kind of in front of me, and somehow I need to then to break it down and understand really what it is in front of me that maybe I need to learn from something. But I just pray for clarity and pray for, being able to make the right decisions and being able to see the right things in front of me. And I think that's more powerful. And really, I've heard, Elon Musk, just to go back to this guy that we kind of referenced earlier on, he does talk a lot about being able to ask the right question is kind of half the battle in terms of engineering, having engineering feats. So if you know what questions to ask yourself, like, what is it I really need? What is it? What should I pray for? What should I, be having in my consciousness? And then the prayers may become easier. I think. So just to go back, because I think we're almost wrapping up here. We have the last scene going into the third to fourth minute with Yogananda, and the background, he's got some, I don't know where he is exactly, but he's got a lot of rocks behind him, and he's hands folded, head slightly tilted backward, looking up to the sky, and you see the whites of his eyes, and he's praying, and he's saying, pray with me. What's the significance, do you guys think, for the slight head tilt and they looking upwards? What's the significance of that, Mike?
I think it's probably also a bit situational. Kind of looks like to me, I feel like when he starts praying, he's actually in some kind of theater, and then they move over to this kind of image. He might be looking over at someone who he sees over there, but it's just like, how he has his open hair. It's black and white, but probably wearing an ochre robe and smiling at somebody. It's also a very powerful picture again. Like, might be looking at one of his disciples, giving him like a glance, like giving him like a nice smile. I feel like I don't really know where they are, but it seems like this kind of situational shot that they have there.
Right.
When he looks up and like he just he's obviously practicing the technique he teaches us, which is to focus our attention at the Kudashta, or the Christ consciousness, or the Krishna consciousness center here, or the center of like will and determination and Christ consciousness. So like, just like some people do meditate like that, don't they? Like with half closed eyes and just the whites of the. I can't. I don't actually do that. My eyes are usually closed, but that's pretty scary when like. And some people sleep like that as well. Do you know?
Really?
Some people sleep like that. Yeah.
I don't know if she's like how advanced she is spiritually, but she sleeps with. We're looking slightly up, which is quite strange.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just what I see, it's like you said, Mike, it's a striking picture again. And Yogananda is shown multiple times in this minute. And when he's praying in both those moments, you've got the video there of him going immediately to look upwards. And I think for me, it's just funny that maybe in some circles you might say, well, God is up in the heavens. And he's kind of up there, and he's maybe looking down at us from the clouds. But to your point, Priyank, the idea here is the pineal gland and activating the pineal gland through looking at it and putting your attention and your awareness there. It's the seat of consciousness, isn't it, here? So I think just for any listeners, anybody watching this that maybe thinks this is a kind of peculiar thing, he's kind of rolled his eyes back and where's he looking? I think there's a technique to it, and what's important is that it's a reproducible thing. You can do this yourself, and this is the science of yoga. This is what it's all about, really, in my books, that we should be spreading this information wide to say that the human body is absolutely amazing. It's the most highly formed technical thing on the planet, right? And Yogananda really demonstrates here for me how it can be done. So yeah. So in concluding and wrapping up, any reflections, any comments that maybe we haven't touched on?
What do you might not have seen this picture before. What do you think of this one?
Ah.
You haven't seen this one, have you, Chris?
No.
This is like a comic that YSS in India produced. Well, when I say comic, it's just like stories of Yogananda, obviously, in graphical form, and this is in Gujarati, but you can get English as well. It's a shame we can't get access to those in the UK. But what do you reckon? We should do this, shouldn't we? Like, how much more engaging is this than like text of like the autobiography or yogi, especially for like younger people like my nephew.
Yeah, I mean, I would read that for sure if I was a kid. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely beats a lot of the pictures out there on religious texts. Yeah, it looks a lot more fun. So good minute, really action packed. Like, something for me to take away is just that it tees up the next minute really well. I think it's definitely picked up the pace, and it's got a lot of fun elements to it, a lot of music, a lot of action, and really for the layperson, I think this is definitely something to be enjoyed. So if we can leave it there.
In the next minute, we get to hear Yogananda chanting himself, his chant, "Oh God, beautiful," in Hindi. So that's going to be a good one. I can't wait to talk about cosmic chants.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.